Hello, beloveds, and welcome to another video. My name is Mariam Milani, your host, and today we have amazing Dr. Carla with us. Hi, Dr. Carla.
Hello, it's a joy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with talking about childhood trauma and fears, how they are entangled with each other.
Really good place to start. So, we are raised, we come into the world as these beautiful little beings that are innocent and very malleable, right? We're like little sponges. And so much depends on the environment that we're born into. Of course, our genetics matter, but so much depends on our caregivers. And our caregivers, I'm not at all about blaming our caregivers. I am about understanding the genesis of things and why things go awry so that we can change it, right? In so many cases, our caregivers don't know how to care for us. They engage in toxic, abusive, damaging patterns, avoidant patterns, indifferent patterns, patterns where work is more important than the child, sometimes by necessity, sometimes to make ends meet, sometimes just because of they're climbing the ladder of success. Whatever's happening, often as well, and I can't leave this out, abuse, abuse of substances at work is at work, whether it's alcohol, drugs. So there can be so many things that go wrong in a young child's world. And the child is looking to these parents, caregivers, and saying, who am I? How important am I? How much am I loved? What is love? And unfortunately, in negligent or abusive environments, the child is the sponge of a beautiful human being, is learning that love is abuse, love equals neglect. And I'm putting love in quotes because it's not true love, but it's what the child is told is love. I love you, but I'll hit you. I'll love you, but shut up. I'll love you, but I don't have time for you. So the child learns to equate love with abuse, neglect, indifference, volatility. The world is an unsafe place. And if this is love, well, my goodness, this isn't a really great starting point for the child. So when there is active abuse, right, a parent is allowing abuse or perpetuating abuse in their own right, or the child is witnessing abuse, a mom and a dad or two partners, abusing each other, the child becomes traumatized. And we're not talking about trauma that occurs from being in a singular automobile accident or a singular bullying event at school that is handled appropriately. We are talking about patterns often handed down intergenerationally, not an excuse to repeat them, but an explanation of why they show up again and again and again. Because parents don't pause or can't or don't know how to learn to do it differently. So the child inherits all of these toxic negative patterns. The child then adopts coping strategies. Smart child, wouldn't you say? The child learns how to adapt, how to, because the child in a traumatic environment is generally often in a fight or flight mode. As we know, fight or flight response isn't just fight or flight. It is fight, flight, freeze, or appease. So the child, simply to stay alive, all of this is occurring on an unconscious level, is either fighting back. Often the child can't fight, is either fleeing out of the house to a bedroom under the covers, freezing, please don't notice me, I'll be safe if you just don't notice me and come near me, right? And that often happens in abuse where the child will freeze because they can't flee, they can't fight, so they're freezing. This isn't happening, this isn't happening, this isn't happening. The child may also appease in a situation. Please don't do this to me. Please don't yell at mommy. Please don't hit me. So all of this is happening to a child that may be pre-verbal, might be a year old, may be happening at 3, 5, 7, 10, 18. It may be happening all throughout that time. Often it is into the child The abuse either gets reported by somebody who notices it or the child leaves.
Mhm.
So we have not a singular issue of trauma here. We have complex trauma, recurrent trauma that the child then judges him or herself for having these responses. Why am I so anxious? Why am I depressed? Why am I scared all the time? Why am I hypervigilant? Why am I being labeled bipolar? I live in a bipolar environment. Makes sense, right? It's an adaptive response. Unfortunately, it doesn't serve the child in the outside world. But that's how the child learned to adapt. The child's just done its best to stay alive and cope. And so a lot of my work is to go back and help rescue that child that is within all of us, right? We all had some much more than others, but we all had inner children. And so a lot of the work I do is to go back, rescue that inner child, so to speak, help the individual who's suffering parent that child in the way he or she deserved to be parented, heal from trauma using a variety of techniques, whether it's EMDR, talk therapy, whatever is necessary for that person, because that adult then goes through life suffering if the trauma does not know space and time.
Mhm.
Trauma is going to be there whether you attend to it or not. It's like those weeds in the garden, right?
Mhm.
Pretend they're not there. Just go ahead and pretend and see what your garden looks like next year. They continue to grow and the roots get stronger and they sprout all sorts of seeds. And that's how I look at trauma. That if we have the ability and the courage to go into those dark, painful spaces and work on healing, not reliving,
Mhm. Mhm.
not reliving. We don't want to relive trauma. We want to reprocess it. We want to make sense of it. We want to integrate what we can of the experience to make sense of the experience. We don't want to blame the people who traumatized us because that doesn't really do any good. But we
Yeah.
do want to understand and we do want to create healthy boundaries. So it may be that we never see a person again, that they
Mhm.
are so toxic and unsafe that we set up a hard boundary where, yes, I forgive you, but I will not allow that behavior in my life ever again. I will not,
Mhm.
because I love myself so much. And I love the world so much that I will only model healthy behavior. So goodbye, toxic people. You go get healing if you so choose. And
Mhm.
if you heal and you want to come back into my world and you can prove that you can earn my trust again, or maybe earn it for the first time,
Mhm. Mhm.
then I will participate in that if I feel like I am able to. So
Mhm.
I know that's a very big, you know, talk about a very huge issue that's very complex, but that's it in a nutshell. There's so much more to it.
Of course, of course. But no, thank you so much for this profound explanation because I believe, I know it's really important to understand what's happening for us, to us, around us. And because, for example, for myself, I experienced trauma in my childhood, and uh, part of it was abuse. And when you were talking about the freeze response, now I know that I was stuck in that freeze response for years and years and years, and not knowing the relation between my current situation. I'm talking about 10 years ago, how much pain was in every area of my life. And I didn't know the connection between where I was and the abuse that I experienced in my childhood, right? So I remember one of the biggest judgment that I had for myself was I'm lazy and I procrastinate. And I just like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so lazy? And it took me years of studying and working with different coaches, therapists, and educating myself to finally understand that, oh my God, it's not laziness, it's my fears. It's that I'm still stuck. That little girl in me, and she's very powerful. Like, very powerful. No matter how much I try, I remember literally my life would feel like I was trying so hard to move a little bit forward. And then she was like, nope, I mean, we're not going anywhere because that's not safe. I don't want to be seen, as you said. I don't want to get any attention towards myself. It's not safe. I just want to stay here and be hidden and do nothing.
Yeah.
And so I know that it's really important. And that's why I'm so happy to have you here with us, because I believe no one could explain it better than you did. I want people to be able to understand why they are where they are and see that connection between what happened to them or for them in their childhood and what they're experiencing today. How that fear manifests itself in different areas of our lives, right?
Absolutely. And you gave such beautiful personal examples. And I so appreciate your vulnerability and honesty. So thank you. And I believe that when you share that type of information and people sense how genuine it is and can see, yes, I can make it through this, not over it, not under it, not around it. Trauma must be faced at everyone has their own pace and moved through to the other side to understand it and to really process it, because trauma also lives in the body. It's not just in the mind. It is actually in the very fiber of your being. And so when we realize that sometimes we can't just talk our way through it, we certainly can't ignore our way through it. And a lot of times trauma survivors will say to me, yes, but that happened 10 years ago. Or my father tells me to just get over it. Or my partner tells me it's not a big deal, just look in the future. Well, that's like saying I have received 20 bullet wounds in my chest and I'll just let them be there. Let's put some band-aids over top and pretend they're not there. And they will be there. And they will live there and they will fester and they will get worse. And they will affect every part of my life. But society tells me, tells trauma survivors, tells people, just deal with it. Just move forward as if it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And research shows, real life shows us that that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So if any of your listeners have been told to ignore it and just power through, they can be validated right here, right now, to know that you deserve, as a trauma survivor, you deserve to get the healing treatment that you need so that you can uncover it and be your full self. And that here's another piece about trauma before I launch into the next section, that many people will say, well, my friend had it worse. I was only raped once. My friend has been raped 3 times. Oh, I was only molested when I was 5. I know somebody who was molested until they were 15. Trauma within does not compare to what's without. Trauma knows its own trauma, and it deserves to be treated with the respect and kindness and compassion of that individual's trauma. So if you're one of the listeners who has ever compared your trauma to somebody else's as being better or worse, let's leave out the comparison. Let's leave out the judgment and let's just focus on the healing, because that's where we want the focus to be, on our own healing, not if somebody's had it better or worse. If you feel traumatized, move toward the healing of your trauma without regard. Not that we don't want to care and support other people. It's not about that. We just don't want to compare. So, launching into your question about fear, my first book, Joy from Fear, Create the Life of Your Dreams by Making Fear Your Friend, is, to me, it's my favorite book I've written, right? Because it takes my clinical practice. One of the reasons I wrote it is because many people can't afford therapy. And so, if you can't afford therapy or can afford a little bit of therapy, but want a companion to therapy to help power you, give you more power and more success, Joy from Fear is a great book because it offers exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I offer exercises? In my clinical practice, I offer my own clients exercises. Why? In our psychotherapy time together, it's generally a 50-minute session. So if I see somebody for 50 minutes, 4 times, 3 times a month for a year, overall, that's not very much time. And it's very expensive time, right? So, why wouldn't I give a client homework exercises so they can take our 50 minutes and turn it into 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours outside? But then they're coming back already having embraced more self awareness so that they're moving through their therapy more richly, more deeply, more cost effectively. And in ways where they can really tailor make the exercises. So I think it's a really important piece for people to know is if you're in therapy, feel free to ask your therapist, is it appropriate for me to have some exercises? If not, and the therapist doesn't work that way and you do want some exercises, you know how to find them. They're also on my website free. You don't have to do anything, give me your information or anything. They're free, your journey worksheets that will help facilitate some introspection that can then be used to start doing external change. So, fear, let's talk about fear, one of my favorite subjects. Fear. And if you want more information on this, it is in my book, Joy from Fear, but I'll give you it in a nutshell. So basically, fear, the way I conceptualize it, is that we have fear, the big umbrella of fear. Then we have rational fear and irrational fear. First, let's talk about rational fear. Fear is, oh, I was bitten by the neighbor's dog. When I see that dog, I'm afraid because it may bite me again. Rational fear, right? So now we're done with rational fear. That's rational fear. Fear that we have experience or knowledge of something that will harm us, so we're afraid of it. Unfortunately, most of us have another aspect of fear that takes over our lives. It's called what I call irrational fear, and largely based on childhood trauma. And these fears come up, they tell us we are not good enough, that we are broken, that we should hide, that we should stay small, that we should be aggressive and get in people's faces. Oh, this is the opposite, to get our needs met, that we should be better than everyone else. We should be worse than everyone else. We should be people pleasers. It's all of these messages that are irrational. There is no truth to any of those, right? And so when we start looking at our irrational fears, now we have a new umbrella. It's just irrational fears. Now I break them down into constructive fear and destructive fear. Just two labels. So now I'm anxious. I'll give an example. I'm anxious and I've been asked to do a speech in front of a group of 1,000 people. Irrational fear comes up and says, Carla, you don't know how to do this. Who do you think you are? You should be anxious about this. People are going to laugh at you. You're going to fall down. Something awful is going to happen. All of these irrational fears. So I listen to them and I go, oh, okay, I'll decline the speaking engagement. Never mind, I'm not going to do it. Or I can come into constructive fear. That's all destructive. It's telling me I'm less than, right? I can also learn how to use constructive fear. And when those irrational, destructive thoughts come up and say, Carla, you're going to fall down, constructive fear comes in and says, is that really true? Maybe we can practice our speech. Maybe we can practice getting up on a stage. Yes, that sounds good. Let me find a friend who will let me practice, and I'll practice. And yes, destructive fear comes up and says, but you're going to make a fool of yourself. You're not very smart after all. Constructive fear comes in and says, I may not be the smartest person on the planet, but I've got a good heart and I've got a good message. And I do have some innate intelligence. So nice try, destructive fear. But I'm going to do some work, create a really good script, practice my script. And the truth is, it's going to come from my heart. And people will notice it's coming from my heart. So I think everything's going to be okay. Destructive fear comes in and says, you're going to make some big mess up. I just know it. You are just a failure at your core. Constructive fear comes in. Notice we're having a dialogue. And constructive fear comes and says, you know what? What's the worst can happen? I could actually fall. My shoe, could actually break and I could fall. I could go up and realize I have a big stain on my dress. It's unlikely that that's going to happen. I could forget everything I'm going to say. It's unlikely those are happening, but in the event they do, I will look at the audience and I will say, bear with me, I'm just human. We've all shared moments like this. Allow me a minute to collect myself.
Mhm.
And then I'll dig inside, do a little prayer, and then I'll give my speech. Because generally people understand humility and they understand mistakes. And so when we look at that and use that paradigm, let's use another paradigm in a relationship. We might be in a relationship with someone who's abusive, and fear comes up and says, I should just stay here. I'm no good. I'm broken. I deserve this. I need this person. They're helping me pay the bills. I can't do anything. I'm stuck. That's all destructive fear, all under the umbrella of irrational fear. We learn to use constructive fear. Constructive fear comes and says, yes, you're comfortable here in this abusive environment. It reminds you of what your mom or your dad did. But you know what? You deserve more. Destructive fear comes up and says, no, you're a piece of crap. Just stay here. This is what you're used to. Constructive fear comes in and says, actually, you're really valuable. You're amazing. You're worthy. Destructive fear says, nah, no way to get out of here. You just don't have the money. You don't have it. You don't have the wherewithal. Constructive fear comes, says, you know what? There are resources out there. There's the YWCA, there are domestic violence hotlines. You can find a way out of this. It will be tough, but you can do this. So you can see how learning to dialogue with our fears,
Mhm.
right? And that is the biggest message in the book Joy from Fear, is learning to see fear for what it is, not let it run you and chase you, but just start talking to it, start evaluating it. Is this a rational fear? Sometimes there is a rational fear.
Mhm.
You leave, an event and you feel like, oh, there's a dark alley and my car's over there. That's a darn rational fear and one to pay attention to, right? But to accept a friend who treats you unkindly, and you take a friendship that is abusive or toxic or neglectful, and you listen to destructive fear say that you won't have any other friends if you don't have this friend, right? We have to learn to talk back in a kind, respectful way to that inner monologue to set it straight. And that is one of the best ways that we can work to empower ourselves and to take that. I don't know if you noticed, but all the while I was also talking to that inner child that was beaten down early on in life, maybe in successive relationships where it was just beat, beat, beat. And that little child is maybe for the first time in her life hearing a supportive voice. And that's the beauty. And of course, I do have to say that for many people, that's not easy. It took me a long time to learn it myself, which is why I wrote the book. I really started finding my voice in doctoral school, and the research I did on fear, it just set such a fire under me that I thought, I have to share this. It's changing my life. I have to share this with people so it changes their lives.
Mhm.
And when we go back and we work with being kind to this inner child, talking to him or her, as you said, she is wise, she is strong, she is powerful. She's just been beaten down. She's been abused, and we want, or he. And it does take a lot of work. So often, having a support group, a women's support group, a men's support group, an individual therapist, doing some bibliotherapy, a good health self-help book, right? On the side, having a supportive partner in the journey, supportive friend group, and can make all the difference.
Oh, thank you so much. It's amazing information that you shared, and two things that I want to um, go back to. Uh, First, I really loved that you basically, when you shared no comparison between your trauma and other people's trauma, that is giving yourself, or you gave people permission to actually um, feel the pain, and also be with their pain and not ignore it, and not because these days we hear about gratitude and being grateful for what you have, and unfortunately sometimes I see people that go into this space of, as you said, oh, I was only raped once, so thank you, thank you, thank you for not being raped 10 times, so I don't have, I'm not allowed to mourn that experience, to go through grief for that experience, because some other people have it worse than me, so I shouldn't. It's like being ungrateful if I actually allow myself to see it, feel it, talk about it, that I was traumatized too, so, and I think it's dangerous when people go in, and unfortunately in a spiritual, beautiful spiritual community, there are some gurus and some coaches that kind of create that feeling for some people that um like, just get over it. There are some people who have it worse than you, and then
They should not ever invite me to one of their conferences
yes.
because I would say that is so disrespectful and so against self development. I think that, so to your point on gratitude, I think that after trauma, right, we can eventually get to a place where we're grateful we weren't murdered, right? But to be grateful that didn't happen 10 times, you are 100% right, takes away from the healing that is needed for that experience, the valuing of that experience itself. And I think that that's actually a really dangerous way to go, to say, well, I'm so grateful I wasn't raped 10 times. It's more important to focus on healing the trauma so you can be grateful to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
Grateful to be alive, grateful to maybe get to a point in your healing where you can actually give back from knowing that you've moved through it. But false gratitude, saying I'm grateful, I don't understand the point. There's so many other things to be grateful for that can be genuine. The air we breathe, the sun, the ability to kiss a child or pet a dog, so many other things that we don't need to be falsely grateful for something that didn't happen to us.
Yes. Yes.
In that case, there
Exactly.
are times to be grateful for something that didn't happen, a near miss in a car accident. Yes, let's be grateful. So I appreciate your point. It's very wise.
Yeah, yeah, thank you so much. And I really want our audience to receive this message, that give yourself permission to feel it, feel your pain. You are allowed to. I'm not encouraging anyone to go into victim mentality or stay there, but or self-pity, but sometimes we need to grieve, right? We need to give ourselves that time to cry, to feel sorry for ourselves, because I think we need to process it. And then when we process it, we are able to say goodbye to being a victim and start becoming empowered, right?
Yes. And grieving is so important. Grieving, grieving the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, ultimately acceptance. But we can go through the denial, the anger, the bargaining, the depression, back to anger, back to denial. That's grief. We must move through our grief, just like we must move through our trauma. And for somebody who maybe lost their childhood due to abuse, right? And that is something to be grieved. That is something, because by grieving and honoring that loss, whatever it is, a loss of a friend, a loved one, a parent, a child, one's own childhood, then we make space for new beginnings, for true new beginnings. And we also make space for the understanding of, oh, well, I was robbed of my childhood because my father abused me every night. And so, well, I want to do a lot of healing around that. So if we just pretend that we're not grieving, it's okay to be sad. It is important to be sad. And then when I look at victim, yes, if you are a victim of abuse, you are a victim. Absolutely. No denying that. We can also move from that place to have been victims who survived and move into survivor. So I'm not, when people say victim mentality is thrown around a lot, and I like to look at that as someone who's staying with the harm rather than working on it. But you'll always be a victim. I just like to look at it as I want to move from victim to survivor, meld those two, but I will never lose either. I will never lose the fact that I was victimized, but I do want to learn how to survive and thrive from that, thrive despite that experience. So I hope that listeners, that helps you understand that if you feel sad, angry, hopeless, depressed, yes, feel those, just don't stay with them. Don't let that become your way of being. If that's happening to you and you feel like you're getting stuck, you need support.
Mhm.
And that's doesn't make you broken, doesn't make you weak. It simply means that you're a human being who needs support. So you would want to avail yourself of, abuse hotlines, of psychotherapy, of free support groups in your community, but you deserve that so that you can make that journey from victim to survivor to thriving.
And one more thing before I talk about the second thing that I wanted to talk about from your beautiful explanations about fear is forgiveness. Because, like I, again, in this beautiful spiritual community, I keep hearing, and I remember my own healing journey. I would hear that you won't be able to heal on unless you forgive that person. And it was impossible for me. I wanted to forgive, but I couldn't. I didn't know how. My body couldn't let it go. So I just want you to tell us, give our viewers permission to know healing is possible without forgiving, because again, there is the process. And for me, for example, I needed to, the first thing that happened for me was anger, being angry, feeling angry, screaming up about what happened to me. As you said, my childhood was robbed from me. The innocence that I felt was robbed from me, right? So I needed, and when I started my healing journey, I remember trying to forgive that person and be like, oh no, I forgive. I'm the bigger person. And then this little kid, 7 years old kid, was screaming at me, no, I don't want to forgive. I don't want to forget. I don't, just hear me out, just see my pain, right? And then finally I realized, in one of, I think I was meditating, it came to me, or I heard it from someone, that no, it's okay to be angry. Give yourself to permission to be angry, but don't, as you said, get stuck there, and start with releasing. If you cannot, if you're not there to forgive, just release. And then the next step, one day it will come that you are able to completely unentangle yourself from that person and that experience and forgive, right?
Absolutely. You said it so beautifully. For people who say you cannot heal without forgiving, forgiveness has a time and a place. And most important is to forgive yourself, because so many people think, if I had only stood up, if I had only done it differently, if I had this. No, if you were abused, it is not your fault. End of story. Forgive yourself. Maybe you didn't have the strength to stand up. It doesn't, just forgive yourself. If you ever feel anything that you were told, I work with a lot of people who their abuser said, it's your fault. If you only didn't do this, I wouldn't have punched you. If you only didn't do that, I wouldn't have raped you, right? And so forgive yourself, because you are not responsible. As to forgiving another person, that's such a good question, because you explained it perfectly. We are often told that we should forgive, we should be the higher, the better person. But in truth, forgiveness if we try to get to it before we're ready,
Mm-hmm.
it's a false forgiveness. And I believe that the reason sometimes we're not ready to forgive is that inner work hasn't been done. The strengthening isn't there yet. The healing isn't there yet. So that the psyche says, in very soft little voice, sometimes loud voice, sometimes screaming, if I forgive, they'll do it again. If I forgive, that's opening the door to more abuse, to
Mm-hmm.
more toxicity. And the psyche needs to be honored because the psyche is clearly saying, I don't think I'm strong enough yet. This was so awful that I need to not forgive yet. I need to. And it's also hard because in many cases, the abusers have never apologized
Oh, yeah.
and gone beyond apology to make amends and to show difference, a different behavior. And so we're looking as people and saying, well, why am I forgiving them? They're still the same old evil person they always were, right? So of course the psyche's pretty smart that way. So what I tell people to do is make sure you're clear that you're not holding any judgment against yourself. And then as you said, do detangle, do your inner work, move forward. They will become less and less important to you. You will become bigger and stronger and safer. And they will generally start fading away to the point where once they were front and center and, big, huge colors, and then they just becoming small and a little more black and white to the point where you can eventually, if you choose one day, look over and say, oh, I do forgive you. I forgive you because I don't want you, you go ahead and go off, be you, right? I have my nice, strong boundaries, but I'm not wasting any energy anymore hating you or not forgiving you. Now my energy is gone full force into my future and my passion and my love. And so I think for me, I remember there's an ancient prayer. This is not mine. I can't say it's mine. It's called the prayer of loving kindness. And it goes like this: May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be safe from inner and outer danger. May I be well in body, mind, and spirit. May I be truly happy and free. And when we're working on forgiving others, we can say, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer danger. May you be well in body, mind, and spirit. May you be truly happy and free. And as I was working on somebody who had abused me, I couldn't make it through that for them.
Yeah.
And I eventually got to a point where I could kind of say it, but not mean it. And after a few years, I got to a place where I could say it and feel it as if, wow, if that person does heal, that is good because they will not ever abuse anyone ever again.
Mm-hmm.
But notice how at first I don't think I could get to the second set of words because my psyche was saying, way, that person does not get this energy. And that's okay. So if that happens to you, that is okay and appropriate. It just means you need more time and space, whatever that is for you. Days, weeks, months, year. You keep doing your work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
when you do it and you get to a good space, you may choose to forgive.
Yes. Thank
And
you.
when you get to that space, if you do, I'm not trying to pressure anyone, you will generally feel a lot lighter because you won't be carrying around this other undeserving being's energy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that energy is not in within you and also in your energy field anymore, right? So yeah, absolutely. And I want to be respectful of your time and everyone's time. But just one more thing
Yeah.
that I was really loved about your talk about fear, that not all fears are bad fears. We need to have fears sometimes, like they can be helpful because
Yes.
again, I keep hearing people, coaches especially, some coaches talking about, I will help you to remove fears completely from your life. And it's like, oh my God, that's dangerous. We need fear. Right?
We need fear. Absolutely. We need the realistic fear
Yes.
to remind us of what's safe and not safe. That gut instinct that comes up. I was working with a client the other day who didn't want to go into a store because she saw a man that looked unsafe. And we had to dismantle it to find, was that a realistic fear or not? So sometimes we get the other piece. The reason I don't really subscribe to what people say is get over your fears, right? That's why I like making fear my friend, because my fears continue to teach me. So when I look, when a destructive fear comes up for me, like, I should just do this. I don't want to, but I should. I pause. So that fear, that destructive fear saying I should do something or I can't do something, I use it as a messenger. Fear of both types, when we learn to use it constructively, can be such an amazing force of change, to where that's where transformational fear comes from. The ultimate fear to me is that when we learn to use whatever comes our way to transform and evolve into a better person. Does that ever stop? I don't know. For me, it hasn't. I continue to evolve. I continue to look when a fear comes up and says, hey, are you real, or are you just messing with my brain? Right? And if you are, let's get the message out. Let's figure it out and let's go on to the next step. So that is far from ignoring fears. That is making fear your friend.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so thank you so much. This was lovely. This was amazing. And let us, our audience, know that where they can find you.
My website, drcarlamanly.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Pretty easy to find.
Awesome. And thank you so much for being with us. And remember, you're amazing. Just open your heart and your mind and your energy field to the possibility of healing and transformation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Carla.
My pleasure. It's lovely to spend time with you. Take good care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Namaste.
Bye.